In our first release of 2026, we added some exciting new widgets to the dashboard widget library. The widget library is packed with ready-made, pre-configured widgets that are easy to set up and ready to use right away. Even though these widgets come pre-configured, you can still tweak the options to make sure your data looks just the way you want. In this short video, we'll walk through the latest additions to the library and show you what's new. Before we get started, just a quick reminder, you can find the widget library by clicking on the Add Widget button at the top of your dashboard and then clicking on the Library option and Next. If you'd like a bit more detail on adding widgets to your dashboard, you can check out the step-by-step guide in the Verto Knowledge Hub. The trend widgets use the Verto change history records to visually show how status data has changed over time across a project or program. They can also be used to demonstrate how a project or program has progressed through its lifecycle stages. There are currently 4 types of trend widgets available. The first widget type is the table widget. Now, this type of widget is great for tracking how long a project or program takes to move through its lifecycle stages, as seen here on screen. On the left-hand side, we have all of the projects involved in this dashboard. Running across the top there, we have the months included in the widget, and then we can clearly see on a month-by-month basis which stage in the life cycle each project was at. The table widget is also perfect for quickly seeing how a project or program's RAG status has changed over time, as seen here on the right-hand side of the screen. In both these examples, the table is set to show data on a monthly basis, but you can easily adjust the widget settings to suit your needs by clicking on the 3 dots and then selecting Options. From here, you'll be able to make changes as needed to your widget. The 3D graph widget, seen here on the left, offers another way to visualize RAG status changes in a graphical form. Hover your cursor over the colored bar to see the name of the project or program from which the status relates. You can also give your graph a little wiggle to get a better view of the data. The thumbnail widgets will present the trend data in either a line or a bar graph, depending on the option selected when adding the widget. Again, you can hover your cursor over the data points to see further information. With the graph lines, you can play around with the colour of the line and the colour of the background by again clicking on the 3 dots and Options. You can see here now the default colour has gone from the black to the colour representing the RAG status of the current status in the project. And finally, let's not forget the line widget. This is a larger version of the thumbnail line widget and can also display a legend key on the right-hand side. All 4 widget types have their own options, and so it's worth having a play with the pre-configured widget once you've added it from the library. Now, to help you start using these widgets immediately, we have added this dashboard as a trend dashboard in the main template library, accessed via the teal flyout. You'll also find a similar version in the project library. We look forward to hearing how you get on with these new trend widgets. Along with the new trend widgets, we have also added a new cost and a new savings widget to the widget library. These are also designed to work with minimal setup. Let's take a quick look. So first of all, let's quickly add these new widgets. So we're going to the widget library, and then I'll add the cost one. There we go. And then I will repeat that and add the new savings one. Perfect. There we go. So just like the existing widgets, we can resize these. I'm just going to do that, bring these side by side so that we can see them in all their glory. And we can also reorganize them as with all other widgets. So as I said, these widgets are designed to work with minimal setup, but it's still worth taking a look at the options to see what changes you can make. So let's have a look at the savings widget here. So the savings widget, just like the cost widget, is designed to default to showing the costs based on the cost category. If we want to, we can go into the options against the widget and we can change that. So if I wanted to see my costs based on, let's say, status rather than category, there we go. We've now got the costs grouped based on the RAG statuses along the bottom axis. And we can see from looking at the colours there, we've got the planned, forecast and actual figures. Now, as well as changing the bottom axis, we can also make updates to the horizontal axis. So the horizontal axis at the moment is showing us financial figures. However, we don't have the pound sign. So again, with the options, we can change that very simply. And now we have those financial figures with the pound symbol. We can also change how the graph is actually displaying. So at the moment, the default is showing it on those columns. But if we want to, again, 3 dots options, we can change to a bar chart, which changes the axes from being the RAG statuses along the bottom to along the horizontal and vice versa. Or we could even go for a line graph. So there's lots of options here, very easy to change the display of your cost and saving data. Now we can also take it a step further. And if I switch back to my column, so what I can do is I can actually set the graph so that my planned and my forecast figures remain as columns, but that I overlay the actual costs on top of that. So now what you can see here, we have our planned, we have our forecast, and we have the line plotting the actual spend in that RAG status form. And then finally, let's take it one step further. I'm going to change the status back to category, and I am going to stack my columns. So now what we've got is the planned and forecast figures stacked one on top of each other, and then the actual line plotted over them. So hopefully you can see how incredibly easy it is to just simply add the cost and savings widget from the widget library, but then within a few clicks, be able to change the view of your widgets as needed. And of course, let's not forget, you can still amend your columns so that when you then click on these widgets, you get the data that you need. Now, although today's spotlight has been focused mainly on the new widgets available in the widget library, they weren't the only powerful things that went into the first release of 2026. We also had a couple of small but mighty changes that we want to make sure you know about. So the first one is the introduction of the expand button on the data table widgets. So this brings the data table widgets in line with the project tables that you find within your projects and programs. So this allows you to pop out full screen any data in a data table widget and be able to look at that in a bit more clearer view. Now, this functionality is in addition to some of the other functionality that was released towards the end of last year that's worth me just reminding you of. And that is, of course, the options around, first of all, being able to show a total row. So if any of your data table widgets are showing financial information or numerical information, you can view that total number at the bottom of your table. You can, of course, as well, wrap your text. So this is particularly useful if you are surfacing free text fields, such as description fields, where maybe the text is quite lengthy and therefore you want to wrap that text onto the screen. And also, let's not forget the ability to resize the columns so that you can see clearly the information that you want to see in your data table widget. So, a small but mighty introduction to the expand and collapse option, in addition to those options that were already made available in the last release of 2025. Following on from this is, of course, the ability within a project to be able to resize the height of your project tables. So again, this is following on from the change that we made last year on being able to resize the columns, and that Verto will remember that resizing. But now what we've got is the ability to resize the height of your table as well. So you can see here that is incredibly powerful. If you happen to have quite a lot of records in your table, you can resize that until you get to a height that works for you. And as with the resizing of the columns, the size of the table is remembered. So again, we've got that personalization process just being expanded, but also giving you the ability to use the real estate on your screen as best you can. So another small but mighty change that went in the first release of 2026. So hopefully you found today's session useful. Hopefully you found out a bit more about the pre-configured widget in the widget library. Hopefully you're now all going to go off and add the dashboards, have a play, and we look forward to hearing your questions and feedback. As always, all the information we have discussed today can, of course, be found in the Verto Knowledge Hub. So please do go and have a look in the dashboard articles as and when needed. Thanks for listening.